I've spent a lot of time thinking about what's happening in the world right now. The strange convergence of geopolitical shifts, economic policies that seem almost reckless, and the increasing drumbeat of countries turning to gold as if their futures depend on it. The more I look at the signs, the more I feel that we're not just heading towards another economic downturn. No, I believe we're witnessing something much more profound. A global monetary reset. If you've heard the term before, you might dismiss it as just another buzzword. But after digging into what's actually happening, from the behavior of central banks to the actions of major powers like China, Russia, and even India, I can't ignore the writing on the wall. This isn't just theory. It's unfolding right now. The question isn't whether it will happen, it's whether we're ready for it. This isn't about stoking fear. It's about being prepared. If we understand why these nations are buying gold at a frantic pace, and what they seem to know, we can prepare ourselves too. Let me take you through why I think this reset is here, and how I think we can prepare ourselves to face it head-on. The world is shifting in ways that are different from anything we've seen in recent decades. There's an urgency to what central banks are doing right now that feels different. It feels deliberate, like they see a storm on the horizon that the rest of us are only beginning to recognize. If you look closely, you'll notice that nations around the world are buying gold like there's no tomorrow. There's a sense of urgency in these purchases that suggests something more is going on. China has been steadily buying gold for years now. The People's Bank of China is adding to its gold reserves in a way that seems almost secretive, underreporting the full extent of its purchases. For me, this isn't just about economics. China knows that in a world where the US dollar has held dominance for too long, having tangible assets like gold means true independence. They're preparing for a time when the dollar might no longer be the reserve currency of choice, and gold will serve as a foundation of power and stability. Russia is also accumulating gold at a breakneck pace. After being hit with sanctions by Western countries, Russia had to rethink its entire approach to wealth and stability. Gold is sanction-proof. It cannot be blocked or seized, unlike digital assets held in Western financial institutions. I see Russia's move as one of survival, insulating itself from a dollar-based financial system it no longer trusts. By accumulating gold, Russia is preparing for a future where self-sufficiency is not optional. It's the only way forward. India's increasing gold purchases are just as telling. The Reserve Bank of India has significantly boosted its reserves. And as a country with a deep-rooted cultural connection to gold, India understands its value beyond mere economic calculation. This isn't just a hedge against inflation. It's about maintaining stability in a world that's becoming increasingly unstable. It's not just these big players either. Turkey, Poland, Hungary, and many other countries are buying gold. The World Gold Council reports that central banks bought more gold in recent years than at any point since the 1960s. To me, that says they see a major crisis of confidence brewing. It's almost like these central banks are shouting that something's wrong. But instead of words, they're using gold as the message. One of the strongest signals of an impending reset is the global effort to de-dollarize. The US dollar has been the world's reserve currency for decades, but that dominance is increasingly under threat. Countries like China and Russia have openly discussed their desire to reduce their dependence on the dollar. They are not just talking about it, they are actively taking steps to make it happen. Gold is the natural replacement for a world moving away from the dollar. It's something everyone understands. It holds value beyond any one country's control. If a global monetary reset does happen, and I believe it is already underway, then gold will play a central role in stabilizing that new system. This loss of faith in the dollar, combined with massive money printing by central banks around the world, is why I think we are headed for a reset. The signs are all there. A frantic move towards tangible, scarce resources like gold, attempts to reduce reliance on one country's currency, and the obvious need for a financial system with a foundation people can actually trust. Now that I've laid out why I believe this reset is here, let's talk about what we should do. I'm not interested in fear-mongering. I'm interested in action. Steps we can all take to be ready for a future that looks different from today. Remember, this is not financial advice. I'm merely stating my opinion. I would recommend seeking out a certified financial advisor to help you prepare. Now let's get back to it. If central banks are buying gold, it tells me they are hedging against currency risk. Our money is only worth as much as the confidence behind it. If that confidence starts to unravel, which I think it will, having tangible assets becomes essential. Gold is an obvious choice, but also consider silver, real estate, and even land. These are assets that can't be printed out of thin air. They have intrinsic value, and that's crucial in a world where the value of printed money is constantly eroding. Real estate, especially farmland, can provide utility in times of crisis. It's wealth you can use. If you're invested in the stock market, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Spread your investments across different sectors, especially those that have historically performed well during economic downturns. Commodities, utilities, and energy are often more resilient. Consider precious metal ETFs to gain exposure to the value of metals without having to physically store them. I've also put a small portion into cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. Crypto has its risks, but it offers something that fiat doesn't. It's decentralized and not tied to any single nation. For me, that makes it another potential hedge, a bit like a digital version of gold. Even as we diversify into gold and other assets, we need to be prepared for immediate needs. If the system breaks, liquidity will be king. Keep cash on hand. If banking systems temporarily fail or become inaccessible, having cash means you can still buy what you need. Of course, inflation could eat away at its value over time, but for short-term emergencies, nothing beats cash. I keep a small amount of stable foreign currencies like the Swiss franc or Singapore dollar. It's another layer of protection if things unravel too quickly. A global monetary reset might lead to supply chain disruptions and rapid inflation in the price of everyday goods. I believe it's wise to stock up on essentials. Don't go crazy on toilet paper. You can't eat that. Just kidding. Get things that are absolutely necessary for survival, like food and water. I've started building a stockpile of non-perishable foods: rice, beans, pasta, canned goods. I also have a water storage solution and a water filtration system. If supply chains are affected, access to food and clean water will be one of the biggest challenges. Don't forget household necessities like medicines, toiletries, and batteries. These are small, everyday items we don't think about until they're not available. It's about preparing for a time when supply lines may falter. This recent International Longshoremen's Association dock worker strike that impacted 36 ports across the United States was just the tip of the iceberg of what can happen. If a monetary reset brings high inflation or increased interest rates, having debt could be a major liability. It's important to reduce high-interest debt now. If you have any debt tied to variable interest rates, focus on paying it down. The last thing you want is for rates to spike, making what seemed like manageable debt suddenly crushing. This isn't the time to take on unnecessary loans or big purchases that require financing. The future is uncertain, and debt is a risk you don't want to take right now. For me, true security isn't just about assets. It's about being self-sufficient. I'm learning more about basic first aid and even simple home repairs. These skills make me less reliant on a system that could become unreliable. Plus, in a reset, those who can do things with their hands, grow food, fix things, are going to be valuable assets to any community. Community is a resource that many underestimate. I've gotten to know my neighbors better. We've even talked about bartering and sharing resources if times get tough. Local resilience is going to matter more than we realize when larger systems falter. Make it a point to stay informed, but not just through mainstream channels. I follow independent financial analysts, people who understand cycles of economics and precious metals, those who aren't afraid to speak truth to the masses. I also keep physical copies of important documents, deeds, IDs, financial records. If digital access goes down, I want to be able to prove what's mine. Most importantly, I practice adaptability. Things are going to change, and those who thrive will be the ones who can pivot as needed. Staying flexible, financially, emotionally, mentally, that's how we get through this. The global monetary reset isn't a distant theory. It's happening around us. Central banks are hoarding gold. Countries are reducing their dependence on the dollar. And faith in fiat money is beginning to crumble. The actions of major nations like China, Russia, and India are sending us a message. The current system is no longer stable, and a new one is coming. I've shared with you why I believe this reset is here, but more importantly, I've laid out what I'm doing to prepare. It's not about fear, it's about being smart, proactive, and ready. If the reset does happen, and I think it will, those who have prepared will not only survive, they'll thrive. Are you ready? Now is the time to take action, to secure your place in a future that's rapidly approaching. Don't let the coming changes catch you off guard. Prepare now and face the new world with confidence.